This is our second look at George's Station, as Slick and Shiny Productions once more stumbles our way through a maze of digital nonsense to pass along a little bit about local history. This is mapping of the original tract out there at George Station that was owned by Adam George, the original settler who gave the place its name. Adam George was there before the Revolution, but at the time of the American Revolution, he gave his services to the country and he fought in Washington's army. After the Revolution, he came back home to his farm. He managed to patent these 366 acres with the state of Pennsylvania, making it his own land, which he could sell. And he sold some of it during his lifetime. Some he gave to Peter George, his son, for about 15 shillings, which was a rather good deal. This is Route 30, this red line going through here. And this is George Station Road going up here. He patented this tract in 1788. And this is a lot more recent. This shows you things around 1912 in that area. And when I see a mess like this, I just want to say, give me a break. I mean, it's just so complex and confused. What I did was I reworked this a little bit to try to make sense of it. This darker green area is what's left of the George property out here. This greenish yellow area is area that comprises what is actually George Station. This was the station right here. This was Henry George's house up here. And you see at this point, Calder and Huff are in ownership. And when you see those guys in ownership, that tells you Keystone Coal and Coke is who owns that. Calder and Huff were two of what I call the industrial triumvirate, which implies three guys. And the third guy shows up, is implied by this railway that was going up here. This was the Alexandria branch of the Pennsylvania Railroad taking off of the main line over here. This went up to service places like Crabtree and New Alex and other mines that were in the Jamison Coal and Coke outfit. The other thing I want to point out to you, in addition to the fact it shows a lot of landowners, these were the farmers who owned land around here. These maps are sometimes referred to as the farm line maps. But the other thing that I emphasized was the red lines. These are both alignments of the main line. When the Pennsylvania Railroad first came through, it wasn't quite so straight. One of the rules of thumb building a railroad is in the beginning you build it on the cheap. And then when the money comes rolling in, then you straighten things out the way you would like to have done it in the beginning if you had the money. This was the original alignment of the main line, this one. This one only came later, around 1910 or so. The original main line, as it was built, came up here and had a tunnel. And people who have walked out around Donahue might remember this tunnel out here because that was part of the old main line. And even after the main line was realigned to straighten it out, they still used this old main line as an entrance point for the Alexandria branch. This shows This 1901 mapping shows the original alignment of the main line. The whole way out to Latrobe. Through Latrobe, coming through Beatty. And this is the old alignment, showing how it was winding around and went through the tunnel up here at Donohue, and then went out to Georgia Station. One of the places it went through, and still does, is called Beatty. And the next little production I'm going to do will be about Beatty Station. And one of the people who had property out by Beatty was another of the George family. This was Isaac George. And the Pennsylvania Railroad relied on him to sell them property for the road from Beatty Station down to the Turnpike. Because in the winter of 1851 to 1852, the railroad only went as far as Beatty Station. And so they had stagecoaches that came during that winter from the Pike up the new road through Isaac George's farm, which road is still there, incidentally. It goes out to Beatty Crossroads on the Pennsylvania, well, Route 30. But during that winter, 1851-52, the stagecoaches took people back and forth from this point into a place not too far from Pittsburgh, because the railroad hadn't been built that far yet. Again, Isaac George, one of the Georges. Now we look at Unity Township, a corner of it. This is Twin Lakes Park. We're going to go in and get a bit closer look. This is the railroad coming out from Greensburg, out past Twin Lakes. See the upper lake, lower lake? Incidentally, these were not built for recreation. These were part of Jamison's coal and coke operation. Making coke requires a lot of water, and that's why Jamison Coal and Coke built these dams to service their coke operations at the mines. And in the not too distant past, the Dillon family, who was in ownership out here at Georgia Station, this is Georgia Station, with the railroad going by. The Dillon family sold this corner up here to the county for a skating park, which is now another feature of Twin Lakes. That's the skating park. So if you like to get your skating board and go out there and go zipping around, there's a place to go. Showing us the area again as it appeared in a historical context. Main line coming out of Greensburg. This being Georgia Station right here, and this was a station house going out into Unity Township. And about a half-mile down the road was Peter George's place, which was another Georgia station before there was a railroad. At that time, a station was a place where you could go and seek refuge. That was a time when the colonists were having trouble with Indians. Our next view is going to be from the bridge up here, over top of the railroad, looking east. East means toward Latrobe, and it's a very contemporary view. This is on the bridge, looking down the main line, east. And Georgia Station, when it existed, sat right down in here. That was where it was. I'll show you a railroad map. This is mapping from the Pennsylvania Railroad, and I put this in yellow just to show you the area that was owned by the railroad for the station. And actually that area is still owned by the railroad. This is the bridge right here, and our next view will be looking north from that bridge. And that's looking north. We're on top of the bridge, and that's the old Henry George place, built at the time when the railroad was being built. This just shows us an old book published by the Pennsylvania Railroad to show which stations were being used. And what we learned is when this was published, Georgia Station was no longer a stop. See, there's Donahue, that was a stop. Hempfield was a stop. Hempfield was what we now know as Bovard. Donahue was, a station out there where the Alexandria branch took off. And the railroad was no longer stopping at Georgia Station in 1920 because it's not even written there anymore. There was 2 miles between Donahue's stop and Hempfield's stop. And right in the middle of that was Georgia Station. That was Georgia Station. This is, you can see the Twin Lakes up here. You can see the old alignment of the main line before the main line was realigned to go straight this way. This is a better image. This is George Station right down here. Bovard is over here. These blobs over here are Twin Lakes. And this is the Alexandria branch going up. Now I'm going to come in on this just a bit to give you a bit of a advantage visually. See, that in 1939 was what Georgia Station looked like. That house is still there. That was probably the barn, which is no longer there. These buildings down here are all gone. One of these was a kind of hotel or boarding house kind of place, which I was told serviced people who worked over at the mines over at Bovard. That's our final. And you have to be careful, because not everybody making maps knows what they're doing. Unfortunately, this is Latrobe over here. This, what says Georgia Station, is not Georgia Station. Georgia Station was here. Over here, this indicates the mine that was Bovard, but they put it on the wrong side of the railroad. It should be on the north side. And this, what's called Georgia Station, was Donahue Station. And Beatty, they got right. It was about right here. And in the next little production we'll be doing, we're going to take a look at Beatty Station. And hopefully we'll see you then. So we're going to push a button and say so long until then. Bye now.